Hi, my name is Mark Taylor. Welcome to Mark D Maker. Today we're going to be looking at my clock repair desk. This is the area where I work on antique clocks. I'll show you around some of the equipment that I use and have obtained. A lot of them are antiques because I'm working on antique equipment, so it makes sense. Come on. I'll give you a little tool. This is an antique pocket watch lathe, or a jeweler's lathe. It could be used for either one. Very similar. It has a leather belt. This motor here turns the leather belt, turns this spindle. You can adjust the speeds here. You use it for cutting pieces to make pieces for a clock out of brass rod, or in most cases for polishing pivots on gears. Insert this in, remove the support here, and you polish the pivot. And this is a gauge that I bought to put on to see if the piece is running true, if it's centered. So this wooden stand right here is where you put your clock mechanism after it's you get it all cleaned up and everything, and you take it for a test run. You can when you put it on here and it's running, you can make your fine adjustments to it. The pieces you see back there, the metal handles, are used with the lathe to carve the metal or brass or whatever you're working with. I got some 1, 2, 3 blocks there, always handy, and a small anvil, a couple of small hammers. That chart right there is for figuring out the size of the pivot and the bushings for the clock. This is a little similar to a Dremel tool. It's called a ram. It goes forward and reverse. Very useful. Got calipers, small files. These pieces you see back here. Let's see if I can zoom in any more. These pieces are used for reaming out the brass front or back plate to put in bushings. This set is used for working on pocket watches. These are from the 1800s. Here's a clock in the middle of being worked on. Put it on a piece of PVC tube just to make it easier to handle. My array of pliers and round nose pliers and clippers. And these pieces here, they're a combination of things here. This screwdriver has been modified to adjust levers. The yellow handles that are sticking straight up are designed for tension on the springs. I'll show you that later. This is really, most of this stuff is for springs, working with springs, as is this machine here. This machine here is for working with the springs, putting tension, taking tension on and off the springs. And this is a little homemade device used for wrapping small springs. It's very much like in the jewelry making business they call jump ring. It's like a jump ring, but you just continue to make your ravels for your springs. In the back here we got a little outhouse that I made out of hot glue and cardboard, reamer tool. small parts inside this little jewelry box. Been modified. Extra light. Light is always good. I have a second punch down set here, and this actually has the capability of setting jewels. You can see all the pieces. Most small pocket watches don't have a lot of screws. They're actually, pieces are pressed into place, and this is the type of equipment you need to work on them. Okay, let's get a little closer. I'll show you some of the tools. This is high-speed steel, and it's used on the lathe, like so, if you're turning down a piece of brass or whatever, steel or brass. These are used for engraving. So handheld engraver. Calipers. You use the calipers to find the diameter. And here's the chart that I use to figure out what size I'm dealing with, so I know what bushings to pick when I go to drill them out. And I drill them out with this set. And this is pretty interesting. Now, brass, you just can't take a regular drill bit and go to brass. It's too sharp. Brass is too soft. It binds up the drill bit. So either you have to dull your drill bit, or you use these. And in the clockmaking business, they use these. So these will take out and you see how they're angled. They're not straight. These all have an angle to them, and the bushing has an angle to it, and when you push in the bushing, it seats, if you put it in properly with that particular angle. Let's see what else we got here. We have, these are broaching files, so they're used to smooth out the cut that these make. So after you use these, you go in with these broaching tools. They cut. They're multiple-sided blades, and as you spin them, it'll put the proper angle on them for the bushings to set into. Here's some different types of bushings. These are really large ones. You can see how small some of these bushings are. They can be tiny. So one of the first things you do when you start doing clock repair is practice with a pair of tweezers picking up small stuff. We got several other little tools as you this is a stepped. Ooh, got some corrosion on this. I'll have to clean that up. This is used to bridge parts where there's no support, like in these plates or between these plates. These are actually go into a drill press if I wanted to put these into a drill press. This is a handheld piece, and the blade has this little piece on it right here that fits right in here. And you can do it by hand. What I've done is, and they make a very specific tool that almost looks like a drill press, but it's got a big wheel on the top, and it turns and it rotates these. Most drill presses are just too fast, so either you gear it down, you put a reducer on it, or you can buy this tool, but it's like a $700 tool. So what some people do is they take their drill press, turn it off, and just turn the chuck by hand. They put in one of these, put one of these into it, and just turn it by hand, and make the hole that way. And that way you know it's 90 degrees. You got to be pretty good to do 90 degrees just holding it in your hand, drilling through this copper plate right here. And basically what you're doing with it is you're going through one of these holes. Now you see some of these say T and some say S, and then there's a number following. This one says T5, so that's the time side. It's the 5th wheel, and that little mark was telling me that that's the direction of the wear. And so I'd file slightly on the other side of that mark before I drill it out and insert that bushing. And there's a new brass bushing, bronze bushing in that brass now. And once I assemble this clock, that'll last for a good 20 years. Here's my other punch out set for pocket watches. Very beautiful. It's from the 1800s.
This is a new camera, folks, so bear with me. I'm learning. You can see it says 100% synthetic. Now, in the old days, the way they used to lubricate clocks was with whale oil or goose fat. And there's no doubt, if you get an old clock and it's been sitting on somebody's mantle for a generation or two, you might still have some of that old organic oil on there, and the best thing to do is just get it off of there, put that on there, and chances are you won't have to fix anything. It'll just start running. I've had that happen. Here's my wrench and plier collection, brass pieces, and this box here is a bandsaw box, and I'll show you how to make one of those on a later video. So this is a microphone amplifier. You actually connect this clip right here onto the plate of the clock when it's completely fixed, repaired, and you hook that up, and it amplifies the tick-tock sound. It really amplifies it, and you can really hear what's going on. It's a wonderful tool to have, and it's in the final processes of right before you hand it over. These are parallel pliers, very handy in the clock repair business. This is a take down tool. It's used to take down the springs. This is a modified screwdriver, just has a slot cut in it, but it's really good for adjusting levers. You can back and forth to adjust. These are rings that actually go on the springs. This is what the spring looks like compressed when it comes out of a clock. Here is a spring. Oh, my praying mantis is on him. Hi, buddy. You come over here. This is how big the spring is on these clocks, and when that thing is wound up tight, it is a weapon. So if you run across a clock mechanism that looks like this, do not take it apart without first taking down the spring like this. Watch some videos on how to do it. There's a bunch out there. Alright, back over here. These are springs for different sleeves for different types of springs. Take the tension off of different springs. To get a spring compressed like this, so you can put one of these bands around it, you need this baby. This will compress the springs down, and you can get these both on and off. Now, this is about a $230 to $250 tool. So it's not that cheap and not that easy to find. You have to go to, you know, somebody that, a catalog store that sells them. This is a tool that is used when putting your clock back together again. To get the arbors, and the arbors are these little things here, lined up with the little holes under spring tension, and as you slightly move it, I mean, this is something that you learn with patience and doing over and over again. You move around these arbors and get them into these holes, and you'll have all of these to line up on both plates as you slowly tighten the screws on the outer plates. The screws will be out here. So you have a plate on the top. All these gears will be loose. They'll just be sitting in the lower, and as you try to put them together, the springs, even though they're in this condition, still have putting a tremendous force on everything. So it's trying to push it in the wrong direction or whatever. So you're moving with this tool, these pieces, and trying to line everything up. The most important tool. Just take a piece of paper before you take your clock apart and lay it on the clock and transfer all these little arbors poking through these holes. You transfer them onto a piece of paper and you number them. And it helps when you go to put this thing back together again.
Of course, I use my Dremel tool. I use it for many things. There are many like it, but this one is mine. So this is my ultrasonic, and this is the chemical that I use to clean it. Clean the clocks. It's concentrate, so that'll last a long time. This ultrasonic both heats up and does a ultrasonic vibration, and then the clock parts come out, go into hot water to rinse off the soap, and then in the mineral spirits to get rid of the water. And just a quick word of caution: if you get into clock repair, be careful, because your closets will end up looking like this. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I filmed it with my new camera. I have a Canon GX7 Mark II. So this is my first time using it. If you like it, please hit like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.